In the darkest blackness of human carnage and suffering, police, fire, and EMS intercede on behalf of mankind. God himself reaches out to those who suffer through their hands. Their service is a clear and unmistakable demonstration that God does not abandon people in the storms of life.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ogle County Peer Support Network, and we are coming to you live from the Post One recording studio. This is Studio One, and here in the studio with me, we have our very special guest, Matt Gendusa, and he's a paisano. So for those who don't know what that means, it means that we're both Italiano and proud of it. And this is Italian Heritage Month.
It
October.
is, okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
I didn't plan that. It just worked out
Look
that
at that.
way. So we may have to talk a little bit about lasagna or stuffed shells or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have some recipes coming up.
My. I am spoiled rotten because growing up Italian out in the suburbs of New York City to an Italian Catholic family, we were the center of the known universe, and it felt good. Mm-hmm. And also here with us is Chief Mike Lewis. Chief Mike Lewis. Non-Italian, but you are
okay.
Italian by osmosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
pasta?
spaghetti.
Yep.
Oh,
Perfect.
There you
Yep.
go.
Then you're in.
I'm in.
Just don't break it in half when you put it in the,
right.
boiling water.
That's right. So
No,
big question.
Mama doesn't do that.
Mama doesn't break
No.
it? Okay.
She just winds it up, throws it in there.
Perfect.
Kind of lays it in gently, lets it. Yeah, it's like
Yep.
more than I thought.
Yeah. Then you're Italian. I mean, by association.
One of the, I don't remember which group it was, one of the Italian-American groups had a question they threw out there to everybody who's on that social media platform. How do you eat spaghetti? Spaghetti, do you use a fork only? Do you use a fork and a spoon? And so they wanted to know how we Italians eat spaghetti. I twirl mine in a spoon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a fork guy.
You're a fork? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always did a fork.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I've always been a twirler. I'm
Yeah.
a twirler from way back.
Yep.
And spaghetti and meatballs is the favorite dish of the family. I mean, every Sunday, that was the big thing. And just even my kids and grandkids, if you ask them, what do you want for dinner? What's the special thing? Spaghetti and meatballs. But it's got to be my wife's meatballs.
Yeah.
And we call it gravy. We don't say sugo. I don't know how you feel. I mean, I'm from the Northeast, but I grew up saying gravy.
Yeah.
And then I come out to this area, and some people are throwing around that word sugo. It's like, sugo? Sugo's more thin, not much taste to it.
I don't think I've ever heard sugo before.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was, I know gravy's the way to say it.
That's my man right there, brother.
But don't condemn me. But we did always say sauce. We
Yeah.
said sauce, but I know gravy's the official way.
Yeah, okay.
To say it.
Love it.
Yeah.
So there's meat sauce. Then
Yep.
there's marinade. That's no meat. That's meatless sauce. But we better get off of the food right now.
I know.
And get on
My
to,
stomach's going to start.
I'm telling you. But we may come back to the food after, Chief. You never know.
All right.
All right.
I'll take notes.
Let's take notes. So, all right. Well, we're not here to talk about food, but we will talk about food. But let me ask you first, Matt, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with the sheriff's office, and your family, anything you want to say to help everybody get to know who you are.
Yeah, great. Well, first, thank you for having me. Like I said earlier when we were talking prior to the, going live. I always listen to podcasts. I love podcasts, something I found to be pretty interesting. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So I'm 28 years old. I'm, pushing 30. I'm getting up there.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, right around the corner. But I've been with the sheriff's office for I'm in my 6th year. So I started on January 1st of 2019, before the COVID and before the times started changing a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, I've been here for 6 years, and I come from a family of law enforcement. My father was in law enforcement for just over 20 years. He was up in Addison, Illinois, so a suburb of Chicago. Started from the bottom, worked his way up to deputy chief, and so that's kind of where it started. He was a police officer before I was born, so he had a whole career before I was around. But he still kind of instilled that type of mentality, and me and my brothers, growing up, and my brother's also employed with the sheriff's office here. He's been here for, I think this is his 10th year. I think this is his 10th year. I think he started in 2014. So,
Wow.
and then from, just being, around the people that are here, that's kind of where I, got my in, and I enjoy here obviously, and so it's been a fast 6 years, or in 5 years and 10 months and 3 days. It's been it's easy to keep count when you start on number one.
Yeah.
1 of 19.
Yeah,
So it's easier to keep count. But I love sports. Kind of tell a little bit about myself. I love sports. A hobby that I've certainly picked up is golf. I can't play basketball forever,
Right.
or
right.
Football,
Yeah.
or baseball. You can still play baseball. I feel like, and basketball pickup stuff. Football, not so much, not so much. So golf is my newfound love, hate, sport of choice. Definitely the hardest one I've ever played, but so that's a little bit about myself.
Well, sports. So if I were to ask you, did you have a favorite football team, baseball team?
Chicago Bears, Chicago Cubs,
Okay.
Chicago sports
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
around.
Okay. It's a great sports town.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Have had some droughts over the years, but
Yeah.
stay strong.
Yeah, absolutely. But no one is as long suffering as us New York Jets fans.
Yeah.
We are probably the most long suffering. Growing up, I tell people I'm old enough to have seen Joe Namath play in person, and those were interesting times. But so football, baseball, sports. I mean, that's a great way to connect with people, obviously. And you are patrol.
That's correct.
Patrol deputy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I started with patrol. I know a lot of sheriff's departments. You kind of start in a corrections type of aspect first. I was very fortunate just with the way I think at the time they had a couple laterals that had applied, but ended up revoking their application or something along those lines, and it just kind of fell perfectly to where I went to patrol, which is what I wanted.
Right.
So, if I were to start in corrections, I told them that I would perfectly okay with that. And you just, when you're coming out of college, I think you're just looking for a job.
Yeah.
Wherever you'll take whatever. But I've been with patrol for all 5 years, 10 months, and 3 days.
Well, and not only are you patrol, but you are also a certified peer support
That's correct.
team member.
That's correct. So, with your drought with the long suffering with the New York Jets, I am here for you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to discuss
Good
any of
support.
that.
Thank you, sir.
That's right. This is the peer support network. So,
This is the. It's kind of funny. My oldest grandson has decided to help me through, and so he'll come over and watch the games. He's a Vikings fan, and so the Vikings and the Jets play this coming Sunday, and they're going to be in London. So he calls me this morning, and he said, "Hey, Pa, after church, you want to go watch the game? At your house?" And I'm like, "Well, they're playing like at 8:00 or 8:30 in the morning." He said, "Well, let's just not get on our phones, not pay attention to anything, and then we can come back and watch it." And I'm like, "Man, I hate coming back and watching a game after it's already been played."
yeah.
And
You just want to do everything you can
Yes.
to look up
yes,
spoil it.
Yeah, and at the moment, I'm starting to lose hope again after last week's loss
That was
to the
tough.
Broncos.
That was tough.
Man, what in the
Those
world?
5
happened
offside calls that hurt. But you have Aaron Rodgers.
there? We do. Yeah, last season was the shortest. I'll tell you what. My grandson was with me, and after he hurt himself, Mason said, "Well, that's it for your season." And I'm like,
Wow.
yeah. And it's funny because we talk about peer support, and it conjures images or thoughts of one thing or another, but really some of the things that we're talking about in jest, I mean, those are the things that cause stress, difficulties, and some people take it more serious than others. I like to get into my sports as well. I don't let it destroy me when they don't do well. But there are people who really don't handle things very well.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about peer support, I mean, just supporting you for whatever, whenever, however, and just sometimes just talking about, man, that was a terrible game. Boy, that really angered me or frustrated.
Yeah.
Just venting and talking. But what is it that got you interested in peer support?
Sure. Real quick to touch upon that, I think peer support is a very broad. It's not just confined to law enforcement or corrections or that type of field. It can, like we said, it can be absolutely anything. I think that's kind of what got me into it, because it wasn't totally confined to just law enforcement here. I think for anybody that goes into this type of first responder type of field, you already have a knacking for wanting to help people.
Right.
And those who, come from a sports background, you're always kind of wanting more. And, we go around and we help a lot of the people here in Ogle County, of course. And, but then it started to turn, what are we doing for each other? And, I'm working alongside, these people that I love working with, but who's checking in on them? So it's something that really got me interested in it, is because I love the people that I work with. And, it really kind of just to boil it back down to helping people. It's that kind of that natural instinct of some, I feel like. And it was kind of a desire of mine.
Yeah. And because it's so broad, and because, I mean, depending on who you ask, you're going to get different opinions and all, but But isn't that what we do in everyday life anyway? Buddies get together, husbands and wives, different ones. I mean, I'm a career pastor, and I purposefully pull back from my community and go to meetings designed for ministers, because I need peer support as it pertains to ministry. And really, it's just talking to others who understand, others who are in your line of work, who understand. And I jokingly, and this is, and I'm not trying to be lighthearted about it, but, I did watch Joe Namath quarterback, but I've never been to the new MetLife Stadium in New Jersey where the Jets and Giants play. And I said, there's been a few times where I would comment watching the game. I said, man, I wish I was there around other people who are just as fanatical about the Jets as I am. There's something about being with those who feel what you feel, who get it. And really, peer support is everywhere. Different levels, we call it different things. I mean, heck, you go to your local drinking establishment to do what? Just to be there with others, right? So do you think that, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you maybe to elaborate, you think that peer support is helpful in today's service? Absolutely.
I think, like I said, I said earlier, my father was in law enforcement, and when I told him I was going to a training for peer support, and it's kind of a natural thing for him, just being old school. I mean, he was a police officer through late 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s, and I think he retired just before 1990. Wow. So he was through a lot of the different times of policing. I think the times certainly have changed. They have changed, right? Not just with lawmaking and all that stuff, but just cultures, and so we've definitely steered away from the stigma of, I can't talk about what's bothering me.
Right.
I can't, why would I ask, somebody if they're doing okay? They're not going to tell me, or that's not the macho thing to do or say, or I think those times are changing, and I think it's very beneficial. Mental health is a crisis in this nation, in my opinion. And I think the stats kind of show that, very tragic. Just the other day, I believe he was a lieutenant with Illinois Department of Corrections. From what I'm gathering is that he, took his own life. And I have had a very close friend I grew up with, known since the second grade, Illinois Department of Corrections, worked for Thompson Prison. And, he did the same thing. And that was That was last year in April, and something very cool. I just seen that the fraternal orders of police is, at least that's the article I believe it came from, is they are trying to pass I believe a bill or a law, which was titled with his name. Blake Schwartz was his name, and so I think the mental health crisis is very prominent, and I do think that having these types of discussions and having peer support teams and is very beneficial for these times. I think if I think of Blake and this lieutenant just recently, and did they have peers that they could speak to? Within that, I hadn't spoken to Blake in a while, but anytime we had spoken, it was, how are you doing, and checking in with each other, and I think for it to be more put out there is beneficial and important for today's society.
So normalizing conversations like this, changing. I mean, obviously you are a little bit younger. I mean, I'm on the 6th floor of life, and there have been many changes. But growing up in a different to a different generation in a different era, I mean, it's normal. And I've noticed this, and I'm trying to do a better job with social media because I'm a dinosaur. I'll be honest with you. I don't understand this concept or this mindset that puts everything out there for the whole world to see. Yeah. Oh, my wife just died. Well, I certainly wouldn't post that and put that out there for people. I think I would probably crawl up into a shell and need some serious help. And so it is normal, and I'm starting to adjust my thinking that this is what people do. They put everything out there on social media. I don't. And I may never divulge intimate details and information like that. But I'm trying to do a better job and connecting with people. And so as we begin to normalize conversations like this, where we talk about peer support, it's not taboo. It just means that, hey, we're here. We're here to bounce things off of. It could be something simple, like you're upset that your team lost, or it could be something very, very serious. Suicide is a problem. The mental health crisis in our nation is out of control. It's not going to get better until we do something about it. So it's not going to fix itself. And having conversations like this, and this podcast is committed. We went ahead and we transitioned. I mean, we were tracking one way with our podcast and with the direction we were going, and then we immediately said, you know what? We are now going to be operating as the Ogle County Peer Support Network, and that we hope to be a trusted voice for first responders and their families, not only here in our department, but in our county and well beyond. And so anybody anywhere could hear this and learn from it, maybe be inspired by it, that, if a department, if an agency doesn't have something official in place, in my opinion, it needs to. And we went through official training. We did. All team members, we all went through training. There's legislation in the state of Illinois for peer support. Chief is more versed in some of that, and I trust him as a retired fire chief to do the research for me because, well, he's better at it than I am. But can you comment just a little bit on peer support from that perspective?
Yeah, it's actually national. And then, of course, states could adopt their own rules or whatever you want to call it. What is it called? The first responder?
Yeah, I know. It just escapes me every single time.
I had it in my old notes, but I don't have it here. But it is, the thing that I liked about it is that it gave some not only value, but protection, if you will, for those who want to reach out for some help. They know that if that peer support team member is protected, and that protects them, as well as your clergy confidentiality, which is Illinois Act as well, gives that person the assurance that what they say is going to be held right there. It's not going to go any further. And that's a very important element of that, because that's what keeps people. That's the stigma, really, is,
Yeah.
okay, if I say something, they're going to come take my gun.
Yep.
I'm going to
Yep.
maybe end up brandished from the department for a while until I can certify that I'm okay again, things of that nature. And that's a big deal, because that has happened in a lot of cases, because we didn't know how to handle those things at that point. But now with this act in place, it designates right within the act that there's even some stuff on the guns that I don't quite understand, but there's some protection there for an officer too as well. But that whatever is said there cannot be used in a court of law, cannot be used by the administration. And that's one thing I've really liked about this program here, is the administration is hands off in terms of, okay, you guys, the peer support team, you handle it. You let us know what we need to do to back it up, to provide the support that's needed, and they don't meddle with that at all. If the chaplain says something, that's the way it goes. But that's the biggest thing that I can think about in terms of it being a real value in peer support. And there's a lot of peer support teams out there that are not certified. And so they don't have that protection. So that's the importance of being certified. That's the importance of having a bona fide following that process of a peer support team, having a peer support team leader, and then having peer support team members that are trained in intervening for people. And that's the thing that I see with it, is that protection of it being confidential, because without it being confidential, ain't nobody stepping up.
Exactly. I think that's, kind of that's why it's very important today. We're breaking away from that stigma of you shouldn't talk about how you're feeling, because you have this fear of, they're going to take my job. I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. Then I have a whole can of worms that I'm dealing with.
Well, even just the other officers, how are they going to look at me? Because
Yep.
it's no secret when you don't show up for work.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Everybody's asking.
Right.
When you have a, man that's away, or man or woman that's away from the job, everyone's definitely asking, what do they have going on today? And
when you don't say something, they're just like the news media. They'll make up their own stories.
Right. That's right. And, the gossip train, doesn't just stay in high school.
No.
It follows you. That's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's everywhere in the world.
Right. And that's why I think it's so important to have that program in place, that everybody knows about it, that you have trained individuals and continuing training, and the admin buy-in on it is essential. And that's what I see that is really well in place here. I've been very, very pleased with what I've seen on that. And it's not that way in other places.
Yeah.
Well, and that's really what impresses me, is the fact that, we are empowered by the administration to do what we believe needs to be done. But you're not going to be able to force people to talk, to open up, to say, hey, you got a minute? I need to talk to you. But, I like the idea of just doing things informally.
Yes.
That works best.
Yep.
And so
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. You build. Now, there have been times when the administration, now not here at our agency, but the administrator at another department, I'm trying to be careful here, department or agency, and this has happened more than once, where I was required to do a mental health check, and you will talk to the chaplain, and I'm like, oh, I hate going into it that way.
Yeah.
I would rather build relationships, earn trust, and then there's the likelihood that I'll get a text message. Hey, you got a minute? Hey, can you take a phone call? Simple and easy. Simple and easy. On the occasion when it might be something very serious and we have to intervene, well, then you take it to the next level. But most likely, it's just about building relationships, earning trust. Here at with the podcast, to be a trusted voice and a valued resource. So peer support, to me, needs to become a valued resource and a part of the culture. We've normalized this now, and I've often joked, and I've said this. I said, well, everybody should have to come through the chaplain first, for me to sign off on. That doesn't always go over very well. But just to be able to sit down and there are times when just a good heartfelt conversation is necessary, and usually it does wonders for people just to be able to talk to a trusted source.
Yes, it's pretty amazing how, I think we all can just say from personal experience how much better you feel after talking about what's bothering you. It really does wonders just for your brain, just it makes you feel so much better.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's just part of our makeup too, where we're not designed to just hold everything in. Mm-hmm. Eventually, your seams start ripping and coming apart.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we use the word preventative or prevention, where if you could communicate, say, with new employees, or maybe even those who are new to the first responder culture, would you have a thought or two that you would say to them about peer support?
Yeah, and it's something that I even tell individuals who I deal with on certain calls. There's there's no shame in talking about what's bothering you. I think that's one of the most admirable things to do, is to say what you're feeling, and if something bothers you, to address it. If even if something you like, say it. I think it's very admirable for those who come forward and discuss their troubles,
right,
their trials and their tribulations. And that would probably be my advice for those coming into this field, or just who haven't really heard about peer support. It'd be, there's no shame.
Right.
There's no shame in it. I like I said, I'd find you more admirable.
Yeah. Yeah. What I liken it to, Matt, is, we both like sports. I played football. I did some boxing. And prevention is key, stretching out your muscles. And there's ways that you can help to minimize injuries, prevent injuries, if you will. And the same is true when it comes to emotional injuries. There's moral injuries. There's all kinds of emotional trauma. There's mental health issues. Life isn't easy, and there's a lot of stress, a lot of fear, and a lot of confusion. And that stuff weighs heavy on people. And so peer support, not just for another patrol deputy, not just for a police chief or a fire chief, but for your families. Very key.
Yeah.
And I know you agree with me, Chief, that, if you don't have a healthy home life, how in the world are you going to perform at optimum levels out on the street?
Yeah. Mental health can completely cloud your judgment. And in the line of work that, we do, you can't have that. You're supposed to prevent, from certain, things from transpiring. And if you're in a mental health crisis, and if it's stemming from home, that can't happen. Right. It really clouds your judgment, and it bleeds. If that bleeds into the workforce, that's turns into a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as human beings, to say that doesn't happen would be a lie.
That would be. Yeah.
It can be as simple as a disagreement before you leave home, and that does rest with you all day long. It's best to get those things cleared up, and they're going to happen. They're going to happen.
Well, and one of the things that we hope to do as well is to allow families of first responders to be able to have a voice here, to come on, share, talk about things, because really, you go through an incident, whatever it might be, and there's debriefing for you. We have diffusings, we have debriefings, we have interventions. What about for your family?
Yeah.
And really, it's my job as the department chaplain to help raise awareness and to provide education and say, hey, we need to do something for the families. And that's what we're intending to do here with this podcast. And this is just a beginning for where I believe we can go. And what we could do is, we can establish a model program, a model program here at the sheriff's office where others can say, wow, that's really cool what you guys are doing. Can you help us? And I'd love to be able to offer pointers and suggestions and say, well, this is how we do it. This is what we do. And you brought up a great point, Chief, is you have to be formally trained in it. I think we had the same instructors for our training, the two retired.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
phenomenal training. Sorry to interrupt you. Phenomenal training.
Oh, I loved it.
That was, I went to that
loved it.
training with 4 other people with the sheriff's office here. And
Right.
I think all of us said that was probably one of the best, if not the best training I had ever gone through.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think
so
everybody
real.
It is so real. It is amazing training. It's, like I said, one of the best I had ever gone to.
Dispatch from Route 7 Command.
Man, go ahead.
Need a chaplain at this location?
10-4. Attention 3392. 3392, you're needed at the 8000 block of Route 7, multiple vehicle accident. Please acknowledge.
3392 is en route, 8000 block Route 7.
10-4.
In the darkest blackness of human carnage and suffering, police, fire, and EMS intercede on behalf of mankind. God himself reaches out to those who suffer through their hands. Their service is a clear and unmistakable demonstration that God does not abandon people in the storms of life.